Hi, everyone. This is Pilleater and N Bugbee for another episode. Previously, we touched upon zine culture and as well counterculture, but I think we would take a different direction now and talk about pornography, as I believe the subject is not just controversial, but misunderstood in many ways. So I'd like to hear Shane Bugbee's commentary on the subject of pornography because everyone has an opinion on it, and I think Bugbee is very knowledgeable in that area. But good evening, Bugby.
Hey, hey, do I call you Pill Eater?
Yeah, I guess so. Any name you want.
Any name I want?
It,
George.
it was Joe, but yeah,
George.
I
No,
mean
no,
Joe.
no, no. You said any name. I know Joe.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know the name.
Okay, George is fine. George is fine.
George. George is my go-to name for people. Hey, George.
Yeah, you're right. You got me there.
Um, no, Pill Eater sounds good. I like the pen name. Um, yeah, I worked in porn, a handful of years, so I do know a little bit about it. I got to ask you something. What do you think? You said some transhumanism last, and I like recapping these shows. At the beginning,
Hmm.
because I think about them a lot. You said something about transhumanism. What is that? Explain that to me.
It's weird because we could be talking about the Bay Area transhumanism, where people like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, who are Republicans, but they put dark money into a transhumanist project that Mark Zuckerberg and Google knows about, that is collecting your data, creating something out of the Terminator movie like Skynet AI, where they create replicas of us, and then we leave our human body, and kind of like in any science fiction dystopia, we become part of Skynet, and then for better or for worse, um, become immortal, or we could do whatever we want. We can live forever. We can become cartoon characters. We can live in a different virtual reality. I call that all just transhumanism. It's kind
Did
of
you make
leaving
up
the
this?
body.
Did
No,
you make
this
up
is
this word?
this is actually talked about in its own transhumanist subculture. There's
Okay.
transhumanists who are positive, meaning they want to become superhumans. There's nihilist transhumanism, meaning they incorporate this kind of hedonism to it. And then there's a transhumanism about like comfort liberalism, where it's not just human, it's transracialism and even transgenderism. I mean, it's in the name itself. So transhumanism, it comes from both the left and right spectrum, and it's just talking about our science fiction technology that's going to happen in the inedible. What are we going to do as post-humans?
Okay, thank you. Because you and your cohorts online use your generation. You use phrases that I'm not in touch with, and a lot of times they mean the same things as stuff that my generation would talk about. Let's say, and I like to consider myself non-generational because I'm an artist, but it doesn't seem that way. It seems as you get older, you got to figure out what the hell's being said. And so I was wondering if it was anti-trans, transsexual, transgender. I don't know if any of these are words that are uncomfortable for people. So I just was wondering, is it transgender? No,
Well,
it's all
depending if you're for or against the trans part, it's a transhumanist nature, and it's how you use the technology. You could be enhancing human life and live for another 300 years. We could have, muscles by taking a pill. It's not just related to a man becoming a woman. It could be a man becoming an anime character or a
gotcha.
man becoming an animal. So it's a bigger spectrum. Transgenderism can fall into it, but it's an immature technology that we don't understand yet.
Got you. Okay, and I apologize if I'm taking this off course, but it was just something this is the way I think our podcasts are going to go. I think about them, and then I'm going to ask you questions. I had a stack of patches I wanted to show you, but I don't have them in front of me. So we talked about patches as zines, but anyway, I digress. Pornography. Let's talk.
There's a lot to talk about it. And that makes me think, how can I incorporate transhumanism with this? I think I can, but I think I should go to the beginning and think about a time when there was no pornography. And if there was in the 1950s, I mean, you could say Betty Page, as we last commented, but this wasn't on your personal smartphone, and you could just go on Pornhub, X videos, XXNX, all that, Galbaru, Danbaru, all that.
What does the
Pornography,
1950s have anything to do with it? I'm not from the 50s.
I know, but it's like it wasn't, the technology wasn't there.
I see. I
And
see.
here's the technology. pornography is also a technological thing because at any moment, at any given time, if I have a desire, I can look at my smartphone and say, black woman on nerdy white guy, and I'll find it. And it'll be videos of it of an archive.
Certainly porn has driven technology or publishing. It was almost the driving force when things happened. Videotapes, VHS, the first things that were happening with it was porn. Same with the internet. But the internet changed when we started doing those podcasts. It was Christian stuff that was driving technology. They were the first on there to take advantage of the internet, like religious stuff. But before that,
But,
it was
but if you think,
pornography filled printing presses real quick. Once you'd have pornography printed in underground circles with the printing press, and then videotapes, like I said, and DVDs and stuff like that.
it makes me think though of like Playboy magazine. That's kind of a mainstream version of it. That was more softcore. It wasn't like sperm or like raunchy things, but
But coming from your generation, softcore, when that was dropped, it was harsh. It was like, holy shit, it had never been done before. So it was at least shocking. It was totally shocking to people
mhm.
because it was distributed to mainstream circles that didn't see uh, the horse fucking or goat fucking or all the weird underground stuff that was going on being distributed under the counter, let's say.
But at least in Playboy, you had interesting cartoonists, adult cartoonists
Oh,
like
it,
Doug Sneed and things like that.
yeah. Well, Playboy definitely gave money to artists. They hired a lot of great artists to do illustrations, to write. Hunter S. Thompson, Skip Williamson. I mentioned him in the first show. I think he worked for Playboy for a bit. So they at least gave money out to artists, which was different than what raunchy porn was, and they did legitimize human sexuality to a point. And now it's funny how Hugh Hefner spoke about when I was younger. He spoke about as a hero, and I thought I took him as a hero. I thought he was great because he presented something that was uh, deemed almost obscene. It was outrageous to show the human nudity, the human form. It was outrageous, and so
But how would that be compared to, say, Larry Flynn?
oh, Larry Flint. What do you mean? How would it be to Larry Flint? Larry Flint was a scumbag. Larry Flint. Funny story. Many people don't know this. It'll be in the Skip Williamson book that should be on Amazon still. Larry Flint stole the Hustler magazine from some people in Chicago, and he had goons beat them in the head with phone books until they had blood coming out of their ears to get Hustler magazine. A way different kind of mentality than Hugh Hefner. A way different kind of mentality. And Larry Flint was a hero of mine too. But the fact is, he was let's say transgressive, regressive. Like he was a thug, and he presented the pornography that came before the underground pornography that came before Playboy, where it was really like hard to find fuck magazines. And he presented as much as he could. I liked Larry Flint because he pushed the parody law. He used parody to mock people and get away with it. And he was brought to court a couple times and would invoke, this is a parody. I have free speech to do this. I have free speech to defame your name, Pilleater. I can just destroy you using the right writing, the right artist, the right context. I can say anything I want about people, and it won't be. I won't get busted for what is it? I forget what it is when it's in writing. Uh, but
Libel, slander.
yeah, right. I forget the word if it's libel or slander, right? But you can't get libel or slander brought to court for that. Excuse me, I'm a
And
little.
that would be also different from Al Goldstein, too.
Mm. What did Al Goldstein run again? Which one was that?
I think
Oh,
Screw.
Screw. Yeah, Screw. Oh man, God, Al was great. He was underground. He kept it
Mm-hmm.
real. Al kept it real. So real that he was broke in the end, and Penn Jillette had to let him live in his New York apartment. He was working as a doorman at a deli, and such a sad thing because Al really pushed the boundaries of free speech, which is what free speech is meant to. If you're using free speech right, you're pushing the boundaries. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about comforting people or even saying something offensive because you can. It's about pushing boundaries. It's about pushing the envelope further and further. Free speech, I would say, exists in the counterculture almost exclusively when it's used correctly. You know.
there's a
I know,
lot of
I know
associates
that
too.
sounds odd using free speech correctly, but
Yeah, there's other associates. I think of Josh Allen Friedman and someone else from Screw. It's coming out from my mind. I'll come back to me in a bit. But I feel like a lot of those, besides Larry Flint, it seemed like there was an association with underground and arts, and eroticism or arousal was like a secondary claim. I think Hefner looked at it more as like a gentleman's club thing. It was more like there's a fine art to a naked body who appears in the magazine. And unlike Flint
yeah.
and the others, it was more like, well, it's just trashy and transgressive. And I feel like there's
Larry
a contrast there.
Larry Flint was pussy pink. He was crude and he was pornography. I would say he made pornography. But Al Goldstein made art.
Mm-hmm.
He Screw magazine was like an art magazine to me, and Playboy was a fine art magazine to me too. It was like cool. It was erotica. So,
Right.
Penthouse took Playboy to it sort of combined uh, Larry Flint's publications with Hugh Hefner's. Penthouse was that great. It was the greatest because it was like best of both worlds. He put what was his name? Fuck, forget his name.
I'll
That
come back
ran,
to me.
yeah, that ran Penthouse. But damn, now I'm trying to get his name. He took fine art and made it, raunchy. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of raunch, you know. So
Right.
I think out of all of them, what I enjoyed was Penthouse as a young man. Penthouse letters where they wrote in detail about sexuality and stuff. Penthouse was where I got my rocks off as a young man.
They tried to make a resurrection of magazines like that. I'm thinking in particular Amped Asia. That kind of ran briefly, but that was just Asian women and articles about Asian culture. And I thought, who would ever read the two things? And yet it was published and limited to 500 copies each. It has very pristine. It's like having an art collector thing. And it was actually as recently as published right before COVID. And some
My
of the actresses in that, it's just up to date and it's just unapologetic. And I think no one talks about Amped Asia in a very much weird way. It could be anything from
well,
movie reviews to then just naked Asian women, you know?
it's so specific. Like Penthouse letters was not specific. It was all over the place, and it was what I was like that's where I studied sexuality was Penthouse letters.
Uh-huh.
It was like such radical writing, and really turned it was a turn on. And then there was then what did Larry Flynn had Beaver Hunt.
Right, right. There's a Hustlers Club in San Francisco. It's Larry Flynt's Hustlers Club with the Beaver. It's right near City Light Books. And it's still there.
Yeah, I know the place. I'm very
Mm,
familiar. City Light Books is one of my favorite spots, and Specs Bar across the street is
right.
probably my absolute favorite place to get drunk.
North Beach, yeah. And
Fucking
Tony's
no,
Pizza. And
yeah, North Beach has such a vibe still. Like I feel like I went there for the nostalgia reason, but it has such a vibe. Specs, maybe I'm wrong, but Specs really, I just love that place. It's probably one
well,
of my
when you say Washington Square Park, you could say it's New York or San Francisco. But if you're referring to San Francisco, you're talking about that, church, Tony's Pizza,
yep.
that little area. Dave Smith Synthesizers was on the third floor. I think Dave Smith died a year or two ago. But yeah, that North Beach area is, I love that place a lot as well. Very
Me
expensive, but I'd rather just walk over there when I hang out with friends.
love that place, like by your little Italy section over there. And I got to go out for pasta with Lawrence Ferlinghetti.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
The brag, bro. No one did that. No one. I
What
got
year
it.
was that? What year was that?
Probably maybe 8 years ago.
Okay, that makes
um,
sense.
Between 5 and 10 years ago. He was real old, and he definitely had uh, old issues. Like he was real old, but it
Hmm.
was cool. I got invited to go with him because he liked what I was publishing, and I was a publisher was putting out books that were deemed obscene and being brought to court, and that's what he did. So
Hmm.
he had that crew found out about me at some newspaper I was in and contacted me a long time ago. So, but with Ferlinghetti, much like um, oh, what the fuck is the poet's name? Jesus Christ, how can I
Allen
forget?
Ginsberg,
No, the drinker.
Jack Kerouac,
No, the
the
fucking
drinker,
drinker from
Charles
LA.
Bukowski.
Bukowski wrote me too. He would write. So I'd write these people back, and I didn't know who they were, and I didn't give a fuck, and I was always giving them grief. And Bukowski loved it. I remember him writing me like, "You sound like," I said, "You old fuck, whatever, fuck, don't send me this garbage." And he's like, "You sound like the old fuck. You're the one that sounds uptight." So it was whatever. You make mistakes.
Right, right. It happens.
But it was a beautiful thing because he was like a mentor, a teacher. He wasn't a mentor, but he was like, an artist that stuck with me, understood the importance of zines, understood the importance of zine publishers and my importance in that world of counterculture. So he stuck with me. He didn't not write me. He challenged me. And that's the role of the older people that come from the countercultures to bring people along, you know.
When I still play board games to this date in Westchester, Pennsylvania. I had one friend named Colin that would play the Game of Thrones card game with me. This was almost a decade ago. His father was Ron Silliman, who did language poetry.
Hmm.
And I just called it Colin's dad. But when you go to City Lights Books and you go upstairs in the poetry section, there's actually a little Ron Silliman table of his language because he was active in the Bay Area during the 60s and 70s, and he was doing sound poetry and all that. He's kind of just a name that people tend to forget, but I guess he moved East Coast to Pennsylvania to have two children, and one of them was Colin, and I would play board games with Colin nonchalantly, and we would just say, "Oh yeah, Colin's dad's a poet," and there are a lot of that in that weird Bay Area connection. They know Colin's dad, Ron Silliman, as the language poet avant-garde guy, and though his name's kind of obscure now, but it seems like City Light Books has a lot of his in collection upstairs, and I always think that's funny. And I just say, "Oh, that's
Nice,
Colin's dad."
nice. Yeah, that's really cool. I City Lights, I love San Francisco was one of my favorite places before the tech boom there. I mean, I
Before
remember,
2009.
yeah, whenever it happened, it went downhill quick. It was one of the greatest cultural hubs in America. I got to see Times Square when it was still whores and junkies. I got to see San Francisco when it was all whores and just sex and drugs. And art and those places were really fucking just heaven to me. If there were the word for it, that would be it. They were just the greatest thing
And it
to
was
me.
cheap to live.
Yeah, well, that's why
It
they
was
had the
cheap to
artists. They
live.
had all that great stuff happening. It was cheap to live in it, but the scene there was great. I remember the first time, because we had to sell zines, you had to drive. We had no way to connect with people online. There was no online. So pre-internet, people think it's like when you talk, well, that was pre-internet. Yeah, big deal. No, it was a big deal. We had to drive. I had to drive to San Francisco to sell comic books to people because I couldn't find them. We had to go find them. And going to San Francisco was great. I remember the first time going there, like no, not Bob Rudnick. Oh, fucking motherfucker, cum dumpster. Bob Madigan. Bob Madigan met us there. Bob Madigan was great. He did something about the San Francisco Bridge. He had a recording where he'd play it. Anytime someone jumped off the bridge, he did a recording. This is number 478. So you'd call this recording to find out, about the latest jump. But he took us right away, right into this dark fucking alley and into his steel door, classic, scummy everything. We go in there, and it's all dark in there. And from Chicago, you just don't enter dark shit. You get fucked up. So it was scary. It was still, and same with New York, had this element of scary. And we go in there, and then there's all these people dressed up doing this fucking performance art and play and stuff. And it was just like, ah, everything I ever wanted was there.
Mm. There's a writer I really like I found by accident named Joseph Chambra. He worked in gay pornography all throughout San Francisco in the 90s, and yet somewhere around the 2000s he became a born again Christian. He was even featured on Howard Stern about it, saying, "Look, the gay pornographer turned Christian." And to this day, he still is a Christian, has a YouTube channel. Yet what I really enjoy is his videos of just his gay pornographic lifestyle before he was a Christian in San Francisco, where he just, drive around San Francisco, talk about neighborhoods where that he knew all the gay porn actors' names. And yet he wrote a book called, I think it's called Discomfort, and or Disordered. I haven't read it in a year. Disordered, it's a yellow book, and I really enjoy it simply because it's this weird kind of story about gay porno to Christian lifestyle, which I think is like an interesting aspect of a snapshot of San Francisco in the 90s.
That's funny. You say that, and I forgot about growing up, it was the gay. It was the gay mecca. It was like, he moved to San Francisco. That's what you
Hmm.
hear friends tell. Where did Joe go? He moved to San Francisco. So that would mean he was gay. That automatically meant gay. If you were living in I'm visiting San Francisco. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Immediately, like that was, I forget. It's been so long since that's been the case, but oh God, I remember that. I
Oscar
love him.
Wilde, there's an intro quote into Armistead Maupin's Tale of the Cities book, and he begins his San Francisco romantic comedy series with a quote by Oscar Wilde that says, "If you're trying to find someone, they're lost in San Francisco." Just to paraphrase there.
San Francisco and Times Square, there was fucking in the streets. Like that was what was beautiful to me. It was art and people literally fucking in the streets. Like you would see sex all around. You would see it in the alleys, around the porches. You would see sex happening outside in these parks, and it was just like fucking great. One of the best things I ever saw. Best things I ever experienced was that kind of stuff. It was great. Anyway,
Mm. Yeah, I mean, connecting it back, it reminds me that San Francisco, when it did become tech, it kind of commodified itself as quote unquote San Francisco values, whatever that means. And I guess today you do have the tenderloin, but the tenderloin seems more like a neglected thing rather than anything innovative happening. Because again, you need to spend $3,000 to live in the tenderloin. And do you think anybody in that street has $3,000? No, it's more like a bus stop at Port Authority Terminal to get somewhere rather than the
Tenderloin,
traditional.
best fucking blowjobs. Ooh.
Well, I mean, that's probably what's happening. But yeah, I mean, walking distance to Tenderloin, it feels more like a neglected space than anything. And
Yeah, yeah. That's, well, anyway, old days. Pornography.
yeah,
Um, I worked with Seika. I don't know if anyone knows who Seika is at this point, but she was like the first porn star, and she lived in Chicago. And I got to work with her, and she was the person that I lost my masturbatory cherry to. So working with her was a big deal.
how do you feel about internet pornography or OnlyFans? Because today,
I think it's cool.
pornography. Okay, can you explain more of that?
Yeah, I think it's great because it's empowered people to do without having people. There's no middle people. There's no middleman. Let's say there's no middle person, so you can go direct to the people and go, yeah, I just want to show you my pussy for some. There's my Amazon wish list. Just buy me something off there. I'll show you my pussy. So it's anytime the middleman can get fucked over, I'm fine with that. I'm not into the capitalist society that exists today. It just is gross. So that's the same thing I loved about the internet or copy machines. When copy machines, Kinkos became big, it was like, oh my God, I can go make a zine at the fucking place at a copy store. Before you had to go to find a printing press and you have to pay $1,000 to get a zine done or know someone that had a printing press. And so, those things really opened it up. Technology really opened it up for expression. And OnlyFans is cool. Like, hearing about gamer young ladies that are selling their bathwater, making, hundreds of thousands of dollars is really fucking wild and cool because it's not a bunch of weird, people in the middle going, I'll take the money and I'll give you 10%. I think middle people suck. I think creatives, artists, or anyone doing the work should get the money.
I
So,
think OnlyFans does have a drawback, and the drawback is that so many people have an OnlyFans that you
well,
can't filter out who's really interesting, who's up and coming, and some of them are just lost in time.
yeah,
And
but the
I see that
hunt
a
is
lot.
where it's at. That's the thrill of the kill, man. The thrill of the kill is hunting. It's not killing the animal. It's going through the forest and hunting. And so that hunt is where it's great. And all those technologies, they're cool. Like Instagram was cool for a minute. Like when we were talking about patches and pins before, and it was a movement for a moment, the patch and pin movement. And man, you'd put a patch up on Instagram and fucking ding, 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 ding all day. My phone is going ding, 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 and I sold 400 patches in a fucking 3 hours. I'm like, that was 4 grand I just made, or three, like boom in a day. So Instagram was banging, and then Mark Zuckerberg bought it and it went down.
Right. Right.
And
I
so
remember
that's
that.
just that's just how all these things go. And so OnlyFans was cool for a moment, and then it's like you're saying. I guess you would say maybe commodified is the word you might use, or
Well, there's a
it's
lot of interesting people, and some of them they have, they make an account for 3 years, 4 years, and they take it down, and then they make videos, and then some people save the videos and re-upload it to Pornhub. There's people like Lydia Linder or Say a Song who was really big, and then unfortunately she passed away last year, and her legacy was really interesting and really cool. But again, that OnlyFans time was like 5, 6 years of really interesting exclusive material that might have been lost to time. And now that she's dead, you need to compile this to create this kind of memorial to her. Joe Schambra also did the dead gay porn star memorial, where he remembers everyone who died of AIDS during gay pornography, and some of these guys' names were in very interesting gay pornos from the 80s. And people had relationships with these men, and we take it for granted. And so I think there's this kind of I would say a Nick Drake kind of ideal where if you put, say, a song as that idol to worship her, out of her 36, 37 years, it's unfortunate. It's just too young. And yet she did a lot of great art or erotic pornography in the last 10 years. And so a lot of it, we have to look back of it when they pass away. And I think this is the problem, is a lot of people are just on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one. And we're forgetting
I don't think
that.
that's a problem. It's not so bad. The problem is people don't have money, but you know that the sex work should be socialized. Joking, but I mean, I love the freedom of pornography now. That people are, because it's gotten exciting. It's not a bunch of guys or a few. It's not five producers making all the porn in the world like it was, and it was mob controlled. And, I worked in that business. I know. I worked for New York pornographers. I would go out to New York, and my buddy's like, he'd have all the time. He collected all the Times Square shit from all the stores, so he had all this great porn. But he was a guy. He was crewed up, and so he got all the stuff from all these guys that ran those stores. And I remember like going there doing some box covers from him. He had John Holmes stuff, Seika stuff, and his big hit was all this gay porn without rubbers. When rubbers became the big thing in porn, where you had to have a rubber on, I guess. He had all this great old gay porn that had no rubbers and was real radical stuff. And that's what we were working on. I was helping to make catalogs and box covers and stuff like that. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but I like it. Yeah, I do know. I like that young ladies and young men could make porn that they think is sexually exciting. And when I got into porn, when I worked on a handful of porns, big ones, but when I was given the wheel to a budget to make my own porn, I made this porn called Club Satan, the Witch's Sabbath, and it was so radical. The AVN Awards came up with an award for it, like the most obscene fucking porn or whatever, because it was religious based. It was radical to them.
Mm.
And geez, I forget what the fuck I was gonna say now.
And you directed that, right? Or started it?
The wrote and directed it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a good time. I forget
Mm.
what we talking about.
About the video, the movie, the porn video you made. So you wrote
Yeah, I
and
know that,
directed
but I
it.
forget that I am going in some sort of circle, and see if you weren't that 20 minutes late.
About rubbers, not wearing rubbers.
I don't even know where I'm going now. This is your fault, Joe. Yeah,
Well, I'll tell you a
I'm
funny
calling you
thought.
Joe when I'm serious. Joe, you fucked me. I'm tired now.
Let me tell you my thought about legalizing or at least socialized pornography or brothalism. I had an ideal I shared with my friend, and I called it Mistress Day, where I would say, listen, it's really easy to solve the so-called incel problem, quote unquote. In other words, people are saying that they're involuntary celibate, that they wish they had sex but couldn't. I would make it a high school or college age thing where, in order to get your bachelor's degree that you're paying $80,000 in 4 years, you have to have sex with somebody on a piece of paper, and it will be mandated. In other words, the government will mandate it for you. If not, you have to do it. But the whole point of it is, if you get your BA, you must have sex. And that is to just proclaim that you put your penis in a vagina and you can't complain you didn't have sex. And it could be a good mistress, it could be a bad mistress. That's not the point. The point is you had sex. And that should be considered college credit, 3 college credit for your BA.
You're phony. You have to have sex. I have something that comes back to that came back. Well, I didn't like reading it, but it was something way old, long time, decades ago. I wrote, but it was like in order to collect food stamps, you got to have sex, something like that. Similar. You got to fuck a little bit to get these food stamps, which I'm ashamed that I've written that, but it's the way it goes. Your politics should probably ebb and flow. It shouldn't be so
Right.
static their whole life. And mine definitely have. And so that was just something I wrote. When you're saying that, it reminds me that I'm like, oh gosh, that's gonna come back to haunt you maybe.
I just wanted to also think on today's pornography market, you have people like, let me see, this one woman I found was Ellie Lee, where you can just upload a few videos that you made by yourself with your boyfriend or your pimp or whatever, put it up on Pornhub, then it gets like 50,000, 100,000 views as if it was YouTube in 2008. And then you make another video, and then I would say a max 6, 7 videos that you would just share privately, and then you're gone forever.
What's your
And
favorite porn? What's your favorite porn?
I would say what's the most interesting part, if you go on Gelbaru, which is an image search website of Japanese pornography and all that, and as well hangtai and cartoon, you can do a tab search. And here's the interesting, I bring this up because people get associated with tabs. So, for example, I am looking for paizuri, which means titty sex, putting a penis in between two breasts. I could look for a cum strip where there is sperm on the lip or something like that. And so these tabs are through artists, actresses, actors, scenes, events. So on Gelbaru, you can make an advanced search for your eroticism. So if you wanted a beach titty sex with this on that, the image search out of 500,000, 600,000 images would find it for you. There's probably even more. I got to check the Galbaru image count. But the point of that is that there is an articulate desire for what you're looking at through places like Rule 34, Galbaru. And this is kind of more like an Eastern esoteric kind of thing. I mean, there's also Western Galbarus, don't get me wrong, but it's all from interesting cartoon artists that do their own cartoon pornography to what's popular in Asian pornography.
Nice.
But that's very articulate. That's kind of the nerdy side things. I mean, most people will just go on X videos and write, what's Ray Blue doing? The 20-year-old Indian actress. Everybody seems to have a crush on her or something. As I just said, Ellie Lee, she has like 6 videos or something. Or, somebody falls for that particular model. Oh, what's luck? My one friend said, oh, I love Lucky Star. We should do an interview with Lucky Star. And she's like, 40 plus. So again, I think it's like a curated desire. It's definitely everybody has, it's like an arousal to find it. And when you see it so much, it doesn't really make you porn brain per se. It really thinks of what is arousal, what is erotic art, and how can you separate it. And then you start to become kind of a judge. Like, is this arousing for me? Is this kind of cliche? This is kind of stupid. I think that's a
Well,
fake penis. I
I
think there's
get
a
on,
lot of fake penises, a lot.
yeah, I don't have, I get on to look for certain things in certain moments and certain moods. I'm like, I need to see
Right.
this. A lot of times it's Brazilian. I like Brazilian porn because they're off the hook. You know,
Right, right. And people don't know about that. And then you can write kind of a whole mod about these Brazilian actresses or Brazilian stuff, this
yeah,
kind of that.
smothering, face sitting, smothering shit, stuff like that. I fucking love it. I love that.
Yeah, that's kind of hardcore. I'm
It's
just
hard.
talking more about poop scat. That's kind of funny.
I'm not talking about scat. I hate that. That's probably what I'm talking about. Just face sitting, smothering, shit like that.
Interesting or interesting.
But
Yeah,
I,
that's
I'm
that's kind of
yep.
harmless.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, they slap the shit out of some of these women. The women on women, and I love that. Well, that's just what the fuck am I talking about? I feel like I'm talking to you, just talking to you. Don't worry about what I watch.
Yeah, right. But the point I'm just saying is that pornography, there's so much of it on the video websites and whatever that people will find particular actresses and what. I mean, I remember this one actress, Justine Lim from the Bay Area, and she had videos she did in 2014. And she used to have a presence before OnlyFans, and some of it's there, some of it's not. But people remember and ask, "Oh, where is she? Where's that?" Another I can think of is Bailey Lee. Bailey Lee was on the Howard Stern show, but she, there's videos that she got before her breast transplants and then after her breast transplants, and then she retired with her sister post 2011, and we haven't seen her again. But those were like 2000s era 20-year-old pornography. So some of these names, people make fun of you and say, "Oh, you know too much. You know what Brandy Taylor is." Again, Brandy Taylor at one point in time, there was a meme back in 2004 where it's like they compared her to like a big titty, Japanese hangtai woman, and she was just some woman from Ohio. But 20 years on the line, now she has a bunch of tattoos, and she's almost unrecognizable from her past. And so people are like, before Brandy got tattoos and after Brandy got tattoos. And she has an OnlyFans and she does have a respectable following. I think Machine Gun Kelly likes her. But you know, it's just a part of people having particular golden moments and just like how people get articulate in this background history. And I think it's just totally unwritten stuff that's has its ups and downs. Because again, I remember Brandy Taylor being the big tit, beautiful, idealized woman in 2006, and then 10 years on the line, 20 years on the line, she's kind of forgotten about, and kind of just a vet, you know.
I don't even know their names. I don't know who you're even talking about, to be honest with you. But
Yeah, the
I do,
2000s.
I meet a lot of younger women that are into porn, like going out to LA or whatever, because they're into like underground or Satanism or something like that. But I don't know their name or their work like I did when I worked in porn. And you know what? Like we did that recap today. Next podcast, I'm gonna remember what I'm gonna fucking listen to this. I'm gonna remember what I said, remember what I was gonna say, and I'm gonna say it next podcast. Because I'm pissed now. Now my head's like, what the fuck was I trying to say?
I'd like to now talk about the opposition to pornography, as there's a lot. Oh, wait, do you have your sound on?
Now I can hear you. Now, just now I heard you say, "Oh wait."
Okay, if you can hear me, then it's fine because I thought you didn't get this down here. But as I was saying, there's also opposition to pornography, as there's certainly the proponents we talked about, but then there's the opposition. What do you think about people who are opposed to pornography?
Well, I think they have a point. Um, because pornography is different than erotica. I think when people are forced to make a living, or it's easier to get into sex work, that like Ron Jeremy. I've hired Ron Jeremy before, and he had a good he speak about this stuff, and I remember him saying something like, it's a lot better than working at Subway or Burger King. And a lot of all the girls in the industry would their future would have been working at Burger King or doing this. So you can get $200 a week, or you can get $200 an hour. What are you going to choose? And it's a smart decision, he would say. And in that context, he's right. But also in that context, I hate it, and I think that sucks. I think people that are forced to, or the greatest option they have is pornography, that sucks, or drug dealing or anything like that. That's bullshit. And so I don't like that. And I worked in porn and I got to see a lot of stuff like that. It's very seldom you saw a person that was mentally together and saving their money. I mentioned Seika earlier, and I don't know. I was just telling stories, first thought, best thought. But, you know, meeting Seika was great because she was living in a high rise penthouse and kept her money. Like she was the first porn star for a reason, but she had rentals. She was renting apartments, and most porn girls are paying for some dude. Like they pay bills, they get taken advantage of, or they're into drugs, so they get turned out. Seika, like how she became a porn star was like she'd work and she'd like, I want my money. Here's $50 for the blowjob because I want it in videos, and so they give her $50 wholesale the videos to her. They'll give her 100 videos for $5 a piece. Then she'd go outside the steel mill or the factory that wherever she lived in the South and pop open her trunk and say, "Hey, you guys want to buy some of me fucking videos of me fucking?" And sell, so she'd make, 5 grand off a sex scene that most were getting 50. And so but she was one of the rare birds in that game. Not many women are saving that money, and or sex workers across the board. Not many are saving that money and buying a hot dog stand to make the future bills. And so I think exploitation in that respect is awful. I don't like it. I think that's why I like the middle people disappearing. That's why I sort of like Pornhub, or I mean OnlyFan and stuff like that. But OnlyFan also became a place where it's like rich girls who didn't need it, were showing their pussy to get a Gucci bag or whatever. And it's like porn it was reserved for people that needed to work there. And so, but I like erotica. I like things that are made by people who want to make them. And I think they're hot. It's hotter. It's great sexual. It's great. You could feel it. It's like art. It's cool.
I definitely think there definitely there is now a class divide. I do agree with you that pornography has become a privilege of the wealthy class. I think there's definitely a class of rich girls on a trust fund that don't have to go to college and just feel like, you know what, I could have sex with a bunch of really handsome dudes or Hollywood rejects, and it'll be okay because I have $1 million in trust fund and I got nothing to lose. And so I think now
Right.
pornography in a saturated porno world, it's no longer the lower or middle classes. It's an exclusive privilege for the upper class. And that's
Right.
definitely on OnlyFans for sure.
And when I got into publishing, I was doing my zine, Naked Aggression, and I had the mind. My mind was like the Teamsters, the unions, people like that. So I was getting into it almost for political. I wanted to push the envelope and push the pendulum the way I thought it should be pushed. And I remember like I will never have porn in my zines. I don't like liquor stores. I remember having that young attitude, like I just didn't like any of it because I saw the destruction firsthand. I saw alcoholism, I saw drug, I lived with drug addicts, pornography, sex work that was destroying people. So I saw it all as a corrupting influence, and I saw it as corrupting the human spirit. Let's say, for lack of a better word, you know, and so yeah, when I was younger, I had that, and I was being run out of towns, and I had worked with pornographers and did artwork for them as pay. I helped box covers, helped like the guy in New York. I was helping with marketing and doing catalogs and shit like that. So I would take my work for people, when I was younger, if I had to. And I like Al Goldstein. I thought he was doing something good for artists, but
Right.
I never wanted to work in porn like I did. It was where I ran out of options. I was being run out of the town in Ely, Minnesota, seriously run out of town. My life threatened constantly. It was bad news, and that was just for knowing Anton LaVey and
Mm.
doing it was for nothing. And I'm like, the Zakaris, Matt Zane, is like, Shane, you could always come out and work for us. We love that kind of shit. We'll help you out. We'll back you up. And so I did. I moved to LA and worked in porn for a bit and made Club Satan. And I remember dedicating Club Satan to the town of Ely, Minnesota. And I wanted all those kids because I had a soda pop company. Um, and I sold soda after all these obscene comics. I was doing soda pop, and all these kids would buy my soda. And I was like, I'm going to do this because I want all those kids to see this porn. I want to corrupt that corrupting influence, that corruption of the spirit. I wanted to give them that plague. I wanted to hurt them psychologically. I wanted them to go, "Where's the soda guy?" And then find this fucking 10 minutes of eating Satan's ass film that I dedicated to the town of Ely. I wanted to dedicate it to the children of Ely, but they wouldn't let me, you know. And
It's
so
funny.
yeah, I was like, this film's dedicated to the children of Ely, Minnesota. When they grow up, I want them to look for the soda guy and find this porn, or I want them to find it now, like when they're kids. I was watching porn when I was a kid, so it's like I want them to find it, and I want to corrupt them. I want to corrupt that whole town the best I could. They look at it and burn the fucking town down. And so, that was my revenge. But I use artwork a lot of times as revenge on society. Did, especially when I was younger. I don't have an interest in revenge. Well, you, I
They
have.
they
I'm
they
gonna get revenge on you. You fucked me over, Joe. But personally, those things but not in artwork. Not, I don't have an interest in that.
I wanted to touch on that because there seems to be a level of trauma bonding, especially in pornography. There, especially in gay pornography, it's very different from heterosexual pornography, where gay pornography, there's a whole entire, subculture of top and bottom, what you like, what you don't like. Here's the handkerchief code
You
between
got that in
men.
heterosexual porn. No, no, no. You got that in heterosexual porn. Or especially back in the day, a woman touched anyone of color, they were they were banished. Basically, they were put in that category. They don't want that. And that was that you can't sell that woman no more, and you can't sell that woman's image no more in the South, even though in the South interracial porn sold the best. But it was also like this within porn. This woman's gone for us. She's lost her value, and so that's how it was.
When I think of trauma bonding being constructive, there were individuals like Annabelle Chong, or her
I
by her
remember
name Grace.
Annabelle. I met her.
Yeah,
With the gangbang.
Grace Quick. Yep, she did the whole world the largest gangbang.
I
I
did
think
this.
around
I
here.
did the one. I worked on the one right after that from Houston 500, the 500 person gangbang. I worked on that one. Wild scene, man. Wild scene.
Yeah, yeah. She's now in LA working as an engineer and kind of
Nice.
puts her pornography past behind. But if you note it to her in DM, she'll bring it up. But it's definitely she used at that time pornography more as an artistic device. So she could, at the time when she was in college, could talk about feminist writing and then use sex as a medium.
Okay.
And that's a very rare chance. I mean, today,
Right.
I
It's
think
rare.
its equivalent would probably be Sasha Grey, who unfortunately used her porno to start working with Chaim FDM and Pig. And now
Why is
all
that
of a sudden,
unfortunate? Why is that unfortunate?
oh, well, I'm joking because it's
Oh,
like
okay.
as a Chaim FDM fan, it's like, okay, let me do some porn. Hey, let me hey, you name yourself after Sacha Konietzko and then the grayscale. You're a big Chaim FDM fan. Then you meet Raymond Watts, and now
Sa
you're doing and now you're
Sasha
yep.
Sasha Grey was probably the one that broke the mold for the, banging people of color because she did that and was never it never tainted her. That she was right. I remember that happening and she had no problems with it because she just went full force. She was brutal. I
Mhm.
was friendly with her. She was cool.
Well, I just, today now she's working with Ray Watts of Pig and doing some projects in music and industrial stuff. And I think, well, that's very charming because you name yourself after your favorite band of Kaim FDM. So as a Kaim FDM fan, it's like, okay, she can have sex and then work with the bands. And some of us are just you know, but that's Annabelle, Chong and Sasha Grey. Those are attempts of, using porn and then working something more in the avant-garde arts and then becoming popular for it somehow. So I do think in those two rare cases it happens. And I think that's the interesting part where you can divide yourself and say, yes, I did things in the adult industry
Like
and then
Satan.
work from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Those are rare moments though. It's mostly it's just awful exploitation on a really fucked up level. And to take someone's sexuality from them, and that's what porn does to the people who work in it, in at least in that world where it's either, Burger King or porn. It takes their sexuality from them. I've dated women who worked in porn. It's some of the worst sex you can have. I mean, it can be great, but when you get to know them, it's just it's awful. They just don't. They have no sexuality left.
There's a lot of trauma and a lot
Oh,
of it is
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
detached that the cliche is just like the dead gay porn museum. It's like they all die of AIDS. Well, that was the
Mhm.
80s, or that there's suicide,
Right. Oh, yeah,
that being say a song. And
yeah.
it's just unfortunate. It's just like they go to nothing. It's like Tila Tequila or something.
That's exactly it. They go to nothing, and data porn star. You better like to cuddle. You better like to hold someone while they cry, because that's what the sex act. That's the hot moment. That's what you get. That's the heat. Is that kind of shit? It's not. I mean, I'm not saying they can't perform like a basketball player, on the court. They can. It's a performance though, and you understand that when you're fucking them. Like this is a performance. There's no feeling here. There's no intimacy. It's just like, I can drain you.
Mhm.
It's like they're milking a cow. And so it's just the whole thing was sad. A lot of it was sad to me, working inside that stuff. I didn't really. And I remember taking the gig and trying to convince myself that it was cool because what other, I don't forget what fucking age I was, young 30s. I'm like, this is every man's dream. They, want to work in porn and go fuck porn stars. I'm gonna fucking take this advantage of this. And it was just not that. It was just sad the whole, and I knew better, like I said, I work with Seika and stuff like that. I just tried to convince myself it would be fun. And I'm not saying it wasn't, but it also left like a bad taste in my mouth.
Luke Ford, who was
I know Luke. Luke did an
yeah,
interview with me. Luke, I'll tell you something about Luke. Luke asked me one of the wildest questions. I never forgot Luke Ford, and I've been interviewed a fucking lot in 30 years. Okay, a lot that I don't do them. I don't entertain interviews that much. Luke, I remember doing Club Satan, and he did an interview with me, and I'm up against this brick wall, and I'm like, interview Schmidt. Go ahead, give me the questions. He goes, "You ever think about suicide?" I'm like, "The fuck, dude? Where's that come from?" He's like, "You must have thought about it." And I go, "Why do you say that?" And he goes, "I'm doing the interview. You ever think of suicide? Tell me more." And I was like, Wow, heavy. And so I've contacted him on Twitter, like, Luke, where's that interview, bro? I would like to see it, but that was I don't remember interviewers too much. I remember the band Old Skull. When I interviewed them, they harassed me, but I was interviewing them. But him, that was like a shocking fucking question to hear, And I'm like, and I remember lying. I think I'm like, no, of course. He goes, you must have. Everyone does. And I go, everyone does? I don't. I've never thought about because I'm at the peak of needing to protect my identity. Whatever it is I'm projecting was bullshit. Like this whatever it was, selling myself.
During the height of
King
my first
Satanist, of course, I never fucking thought of suicide, bitch. I fucking think of killing people, not myself. But he was right. Of course, I had, and I do. I just did in our break.
I was just saying when I was doing my whole asianarianism.com back in 2017, Luke Ford reached out and interviewed me. And I think it's in his archive from 2017. And then around that time, 2017, 2018, I was casually on the Luke Ford stream on YouTube. And I get his, yeah,
Was
he
he
had,
still
was, he's still around. I mean, he has his YouTube channel,
was
which he
he
just
still doing porn when he interviewed you?
No, he was out of it. He was doing dissident politics, or he was just doing the
Okay.
far right because he personally thought white nationalism was just as controversial. And so he was doing those rounds. And I was in that Luke Ford circle for 2, 3 years, and I was appearing on his YouTube show for a bit. And Luke's
Did you
now
find
just
him?
bought. What's that?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but we eventually met in LA in 2019. I met him in LA, and he was a very nice person.
He is. Did you find his interview style great?
Yeah, he's very much will just throw out, big thought provoking questions, and you got to work with it.
Yeah, he's a great one, and I don't say that lightly. I don't say that lightly. I wish you, if Luke ever hears this, I wish you would find that interview with me, bro. Like, I'd like to see that. I'd like to have it,
He's
you know.
he's he's making a show every other day. He's still doing it. Some of my friends will appear on a show a bit. It's kind of like the older audience that does because he's now just talking general politics. But he definitely was the guy that was into pornography and interviewing that because he liked the whole trauma bonding aspect and sad part of it all. And I think he done a really good job looking at that. And some of it he neglects it now, but a lot of it's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was. I definitely think so. Out of everyone, I don't. Whatever, whatever. That whole. Anyway, Luke is cool. Luke, reach out to me.
Was there any other sad life of the pornographers or happy life of pornographers that you know or can think of?
Well, both. It was extreme. Like when I was there, it was cool. I go to beach party. I mean, go to big houses with pools and all porn girls there, and offering you all the sex you ever wanted, anything you want to do, doesn't matter. You can do whatever. You want to punch me in the fucking head, do it. It doesn't fucking matter. You can do whatever you want. And so that's wild because it's different than normal world. It was decadent and a lot of decadence. And so I appreciated a lot of that party. I come from that world of prostitution and all that kind of shit. I come from that zip code. And so it wasn't that crazy to me. It was just more extreme than I was used to.
Mm.
Um, what, geez, I have a ton of stories from those days, a ton of stories. Like I remember when I did Club Satan, this guy comes in. Oh, well, this is more Satan story. Yeah, fuck that. It was, I don't know. I'm proud of my film, Club Satan, The Witch's Sabbath. I was proud to make that. It was the last film Extreme Associates did. And it was the best film they ever did because I pushed it with Rob. And then he went to jail. Him and Lizzie went to jail for a handful of years for their pornography, and that was a while. Rob Black was a his here's I'll tell you, he was a great pornographer, but his father, these are Italians. They own bookstores. They own whole strips of fucking sex business, if you know what I'm saying. So the Zakari family, Rob Zakari, he was born into it. And his porn was so extreme when I watched it, it was like an expression of he hated it. He would tie women to fucking chairs and throw them into the pool and watch them fucking, you know, drowned and pull them out before they died, but barely. And so he was like brutal and he got on. I want the feds to arrest me. Come on, fucking arrest me. I'm going to do everything he said I can't do. Oh, here's something. We'd go around when there's fax machines. When a Republican would get in office, they'd fax out the pornographers, the four families, the five families, the 10 families, whatever was running porn. They'd send a fax to each other. Remember, now that the Republicans in office, four fingers only, thumb out, no fist, no full fist. So these rules would change, but it would be based on who was just elected. And it would those faxes would go out the day after the election. No more fucking full fist, or we can't distribute it. Four fingers only, and they would clean off the shelves of any full fisting porn, because they knew they'd get raided and busted. They knew just how what was uh, kosher, or what would fly under Democrats or Republicans, and the harder core porn flew under Democrats, and the different porn would fly under. Oh God, here's one. Okay, I'm doing Club Satan, and we're meeting with all these people. Rob is a big deal, and all these AVN, fucking Hustler, Play, any of these magazines, they come in and talk to you, do interviews. So it's a big industry. And so we're doing all these interviews, and we're meeting with these consultants, like let's say like a Luke Ford. These people would come in and talk. How can we sell Club Satan? How can we sell this fucking film in the South? They don't buy any Satan stuff. And I go, just call it a heavy metal movie. Quit calling it a satanic movie. So we're meeting, and this guy's like, I'm having the hardest time wrapping my mind around how selling this. And he goes, hey, remember when we wanted to do that porn at Auschwitz? And I'm like, and he's like, we're gonna put the girl in the oven, throw some fucking ash on her and fuck her. And he's going on and on. I'm like, hey, and you can't sell Club Satan? You can't sell Satan? He's like, no, but this fucking porn in Auschwitz, that would sell. That would sell, buddy. And I'm like, I don't know this business. I'm not gonna argue with you.
Well, it's if you go on Pornhub right now and you look for Jewish girl, I mean they'll have to show you Jewish girl in the results and
Oh yeah,
say
you're gonna tell me they're gonna have an Auschwitz porn? Like that's fucking
I,
brutal.
I I
You're gonna
haven't I
throw
haven't
ash in
seen
there.
it.
You're gonna have a push a girl's face in ash. Like that's what they're talking about making a fucking porn in Auschwitz, like going to Auschwitz and making a porn. I would imagine that's never been made. And I would
Right.
imagine just me speaking it is upsetting to people. And I
Because
trigger warning.
I know why. Because well, it's like this. It's like if Squid Game gets popular, somebody has to make a Squid Game porno. If Donald Trump gets elected, then they're
Yeah,
going
of
to make a Donald
course.
Trump. It seems to be a tradition in the cliches of thematic
They did,
AAA pornos.
but Auschwitz was not popular in my,
Right.
it was something the guy was like, it was about being fucking like, how can we go? I'm working with extreme associates. They're coming up with slap porn, slapping the shit out of women, you know, uh, ass face, all this kind. They're coming up with the worst, most extreme shit. And so when I put my film out, it was about religion. It was extreme in that context. And Rob wasn't that turned on to it because he was a metalhead, but the industry was. And I remember the women that came into play. There's two women came into on the set, and they were so freaked out. And in porn, you would be like, you got to collect the girls' phones. They can't have their phones
Mm.
because they'll call their boyfriend or something like that. You can't have that. You got to take all the phones. Well, this girl had a phone. She dialed her boyfriend, and this guy was a MMA fighter, and I guess he comes in. He's like, where the fuck is she? Who's running this place? And all these fucking guys, Zane brothers, Matt Zane, he knows karate. All these fucking guys, they get behind me. He's in charge. I'm like, the fuck? Like these are all fighters. I'm not that guy. I'm a lover. Anyway, the guy comes over and he looks, and I have this Baphomet Anton LaVey gave me, and he looks down at it and he looks at me and he's like, oh, and he looks at that and she goes, I go, dude, she's right in there. Grab her and go. Just go grab her and take her out. There's no problem with that. Just go. She don't want to be here. And he goes in there, gets her, and leaves. But he was like, that's okay. That's what happened. And then I look back at Matt Zane, and they're fucking pale, white pale, afraid, freaking out. So I'm dense to what's going on around me. And they're like, that guy's broken 3 backs in the last 2 months. He comes on porn sets and just fucking snaps people's backs over their fucking legs. One guy's still in the fucking hospital. And they're like, I'm like, oh fuck. And Matt even said, he goes, I think that fucking necklace scared him away. Because they were freaked out about the Satan stuff, because it was a real great set, upside down crosses, Baphomet, shit like that. And then Rob comes in, he's like, then all these guys come in, like heavy hitters, shooters and stuff. And they're like, that motherfucker's lucky he wasn't back in the day. And they were like, what's his address? They were going to go knock down his door and rough, do something. And so it was like, I didn't really like being involved in that, because I'm there trying to make, I'm not like looking to have people hurt. I'm not looking to be in that business, you
It
know.
looks like a lot of that was like the masculine heavy guy, high testosterone type of ideal rather than say, privatized pornography or set things. I know
Oh
you
yeah,
get that a lot of Andrew Tateism from that.
oh okay. I was at the porn convention. See that hair on my chest? Okay. I'm
The
doing club.
mustache, the mustache is
No, no, no.
another
You got to have hair on your chest. Listen to what I'm going to say. This is from the Zakari clan. They got a guy from Italy there. And we're doing that. We're at AVN Awards and it's big in Vegas. All thousands of people are there. You're trying to get people to see your film or, buy it and do stories on it. And the Zakari guy is the guy from Italy. Shane goes up front. He's the bull. And I go, why me, Matt? And he goes, I go, why they put me up front? You're the good looking guy with the long hair, all this stuff. He's like, because you're the bull. And I go, what's that mean? He goes, you got all that hair on your chest. That means more testosterone. The hairier your chest is in Italian culture, the more man you are. And he goes, he thinks we're like girls because they had no hair on their chest. And so that was the deal. It was just funny. There, I don't know why I'm telling you that, but it was. I kept that. I can't forget that moment because I was like, the hair on the chest makes me the lead. Okay.
well, now they shave their pubic hairs if they were to do pornography today because so much, sucking goes on that they can't have a bush there like it was the 70s or something. I
Yeah.
don't
Well, these
know.
were all hairy Italian guys sitting in the back, like
Hmm.
running things.
Right. It pornography is a lot of it today is finessing the camera. So if James Dean is making a porno, it's just he buys the set, he gets the woman to put on makeup, he gets I don't know, and this is where I call the fake penis thing because it's like you can make a plastic penis to put over your actual penis to make it look like it's enlarged, finessing the
Well,
camera, and then the
yeah.
girl looks like she is doing sex, but it's not. And there's a lot of fake penises, I say.
Oh, there's a lot of fake in porn. Period. That Matt Zane would talk about that, like how his dick. We watch these films. He goes, I'm on the set with him. He goes, look how big my dick looks on this film because it's how you shoot it. It's how the angles you make. That he would make sure that his dick was shot at certain angles so it looked bigger. It was hilarious. And then yeah, you put soap in your hand to do
Shellac it.
yeah to make it look like a cum shot. You put some soap in your hand like liquid soap.
Mm.
Looks like cum job.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of like tricks and techniques. I would say, I mean, I'm coming on to it too, and I kind of judge pornography of how real it is versus how fake. There's really different when you just film it in your bedroom or like in a public place, but then it's really fake when you have like a $2,000 camera, some makeup, whatever, and then it just feels like more cartoony than anything. And there's no, in my interest, there's no authentic relation between the viewer and the porn that's viewing.
Well, that's
Uh,
why like OnlyFans or what was it before? There was a website, I forget where it was a lot of porn. You scrolled around. Oh fuck.
Clip
Tumblr.
hunters.
Tumblr.
Okay.
And when Tumblr was popping, there would be young ladies on there, women of age. Um, and they'd be like, showing their pussy or whatever. And it was just like women in their apartment or whatever. It was not posed like it's like on TikTok today, how they sell their OnlyFans is a lot of posed. This was like the real deal. And I was like, this is great because this is pure. This is like someone in their bedroom just doing this. And it wasn't amateur porn. It was like a person watching porn, studying it and going, okay, I want to do what they're doing. I want to make a film, an art film, about something, or I want to do this. So I like all that stuff.
Have you ever looked into alternative pornography or alt porn? Eon McKay, I believe his name
Oh, I
is.
was friends with Ian. I got a picture. We were friendly. Yeah, yeah. But I didn't really see it as what was alt about it. Please tell me.
I mean, that was interesting. He was using the term alt before porn before there was an alt right.
Right, but
And
what was alt about it?
I guess he was saying that it was alt and that it was not mainstream and that the pornography had to do more with interesting subcultures or something.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think I remember Matt Zane saying he ripped him off because Matt did backstage sluts, and it was a lot of like all like underground cult. He was embedding like backstage slut was like go meet ICP, go meet Iron Maiden, and he'd bring porn stars to meet rock stars and film it, and he'd have them throw lunch meat at their ass or whatever shit like that, and then they'd fuck them. And yeah, I remember that. But Ian was a cool guy. He was a righteous guy, but he wasn't alt. He was part of the. He was a big selling producer, or not a
Hmm.
producer, director. He worked for people. there was no one producing porn but mobsters and criminals. No
Yeah,
one.
because he was doing really artsy things with it, and I liked some of his films when I was a teenager, and I always thought he was brave enough to call it alt porn, and it just made me think differently at 18, 19 what pornography could be as a medium.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was I have nothing bad to say about him. He was a cool guy to talk to.
What do you think about pornography as a means of social control? In other words, that pornography can make people have masturbation addiction or just
Yeah.
create delusions. How would you say about that? And how would you
Well,
define it between
that's what I was
viewing
talking
art
about.
and
What was that?
viewing the art and not being addicted to it? It's kind of a weird balance right there. How can you watch erotic art and not be addicted to the substance of masturbation addiction? Or is it just okay, you know?
Well, we're impulsive creatures, right? Anyway, um, I think there's a that's what I was saying earlier. I never wanted to be involved with porn in that respect because it was like being involved with drugs or alcohol. I wasn't wanting to get into any of that business. I wanted to make artwork and I wanted to do something serious that was going to change the world. I didn't want to be a part of the world. I didn't want to be a part of the problem. I wanted to be part of a solution. Well, of course, my solution is your problem, maybe. But I was idealistic when I was younger. And I still am as an artist, I'm idealistic, but as a human being, I'm realistic. I'm a realist. Um, I think there's a lot to be said for that kind of stuff. I hear concepts of like, don't masturbate if you want to pick up a girl. You want to go pick up a girl, stop whacking off, and you'll fucking pick up a girl. I think there's a lot to that. You're like so horny. You're like, yeah, hey, how you doing? You
Well, you
figure out.
get vitalist energy and then there's a huge release. Or if there was a release, you can't even feel it.
But I mean, you're letting off a chemical too. There's a lot of chemicals involved in that. So I think there's a lot to that. Like, don't be, because then you're going out and you're like, "Woo, I'm fucking charged. I really want to talk to you, Susie." And there's a chemical going off where, if she's heated, there's going to be something going on there. So I think there's something to a lot of that. And I think much like drugs, pornography triggers our base instincts. Bernays used sexuality in his manipulation, and so the phallic, he understood. Go to Freud. Freud will talk to you about this, right? It does trigger you out. It does fucking bring you into to situations that are hard to communicate. You know, and I think pornography has made it hard for people to communicate their sexuality more than, at least, what I've seen. Younger people, it seems maybe different. Okay, younger people are fuck beasts. They fuck around. But I remember, it made it hard, I think, for people to communicate their sexuality because they could always turn to it in a adult bookstore or in a private corner. So because it was like growing up, like it was in the worst part of town. It was dirty. It was in buildings that were awful and seedy, and it was all, you would be embarrassed, to be caught in one of those places. I wouldn't, but that's how most people were. And so it was stigmatizing. It wasn't freeing. And erotica, like Playboy and stuff like that, it was more about freeing sexuality. You know, it was about and Penthouse. So I think there's they have a lot of those issues or concepts have merit. You know, I I I I wish I could say porn is a cool thing. I don't think it is. I think erotica is cool. I think self-made, if you want to call it porn and you're making, it's made because you want to make it and you're sharing, that's different. That becomes filmmaking or something else. Then I see it just as filmmaking. I don't see it as porn, but porn is like drugs, man. It's like they look for things that are going to trigger you. Like when I made my porn, I did well, but I read this book, Men in Love, by Nancy Friday. And it talks about all the fucking triggers, talks about all the triggers like white panties, shit like that, like things that are going to trigger fucking dudes out. And I use that book, constantly, but that's what you do in porn. You're like, what's going to trigger people out in the South? What's going to fucking hook them? What's going to hook them? What's going to hook them? What's
Those
going
are
to
always changing, by the way. I think it has to do with a lot of in subculture and the words come into
possibly,
play. in that.
Possibly, I don't think white panties is going to change. I think when you grow up and you see the young girl that you're growing up with, your neighbor coming down the slide, and you see her white panties, and those are the first kind of things you're seeing. It becomes something. What is it? People talk about free will, historic will. It becomes these things that drive
Like
you.
for example, you might be drenched in the zeitgeist and you start using subcultural words to define things. So for example, one person would say gooning, goonig, and it's really popping in the Twitter space. Then the porn world on X videos will say they'll have ads that say, oh, are you gooning? Like they want to be like you, they
What
want
is
to
gooning
act.
again?
Hey, it means like I mean to masturbate. I've never used that. That was definitely a word invented a year or 2 years ago. But I'm just saying is that they will come on to these terms that are spoken in the internet Twitter realm and then say,
Terms are
I'm like
different.
you.
Terms are different than our animal instincts. You know that those do become. You're right. They're cultural or they're generational, but our animal instincts are different. You see your mom bend over, something happens at the right time when you're starting to have feeling down in your crotch. You see certain things that trigger you out, and it sticks with you forever. It becomes fetish. You know,
It's
your
more
dad
like a
spanked you.
girl, your girlfriend, or your wife bending over and you see her big butt and you just want to go at it.
Yeah, or you know, I want daddy to spank me. I get, you know, this is what happens. And I think that's, something that comes from a young lady, lady's childhood. Something happened there where they got spanked, and there's just a natural kind of chemical reaction when you're getting hurt. You're trying to, you know, I read this book called Body Keeps the Score,
I have that one.
and it really got me,
Good one.
yeah, when I went to start going to therapy and when I understood what was going on around me, I was like, holy fuck, this is a chemical addiction. This dysfunction we have is a chemical addiction. You need this. You need to have this fight. You need to fucking bring this on to get that going. And I couldn't participate in it anymore. And so that's what I see with a lot of this stuff is when I read that book, I was like, oh God, this really fucking explains fetish almost or some and it's good that stuff's being spoke about and there's books about it now. But there you go. Long-winded answer.
I think maybe next time we should talk about sadism. I think that's a huge topic to
Oh,
talk about.
buddy, I would love to. And don't cut out my shit about that fucking. Don't cut my stuff. You're not going to cut this down when I
No,
talk.
we're not going to cut this down.
Um, I would love to talk about. I have a lot of fucking bones to pick with the S&M community and stuff like that. Oh,
I
buddy,
think that
dude.
would lay because sadism is its own category. It's not just pornography. It's like what inflicts pain and we enjoy pain and what is suffering and
Let's let's
gets into
let's.
ethics.
You're going to get me going, man. Don't.
Yeah, yeah.
I only
We'll
two
leave that
minutes.
for our next episode. I think that was this would be a great lay to sadism in our next episode.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's good talking to you, Pill Eater. Remember, people, to come and visit ShaneBugbee.com, or GarageSale666.com for the next few weeks. You
All
know,
right. Well, it's
shouldn't
nice to
they
talk to
be,
you.
no, shouldn't they give us money? Shouldn't you be asking for money? Don't you have a coffee account? Don't you get donations? No, you don't do that.
No, I just have a website, and I hope
You should
people
go there.
buy
Why
your
don't you
stuff
ask
or buy
people to
my
go
book.
there? What is that against you? The
I
artist that
mean,
can't the artist that can't sell himself is food.
it's www.pilleater.com,
Yeah.
and then has all my links there.
Why don't
And
you want to promote yourself? What is
well,
self-promotion?
well,
Highest
I
love.
guess I try really hard. I just have a weird subliminal way of doing it. I just think people would find all the links there, and kind of like finding a scary book in a library. They pick it
My
up,
ego's
and
taking
they.
control. I got to be good enough. They'll find me. They're gonna fucking look for me. I swear to you. I'm gonna
All
say
right.
something so great. They're gonna look and find me. Fuck
I
that
guess
shit.
I guess my information's on www.twitter.com/real pilleater. And my Instagram is instagram.com/pilleaters. And
Mine is all
YouTube,
Michael Hunt Publishing now over on those things.
Michael Hunt Punch. And my YouTube, this is also mirrored there, is youtube.com/pilleater. And you can also find it on BitChute, Odyssey, and Internet Archive.
Yeah, don't lay that groundwork, motherfuckers. This is taking us time. It's worth spending money or seeing the website or sharing those things. Hey, you have to tell people, or they're gonna take it for granted. You probably have a lot of friends that take things for granted. They don't give
All
a
right.
fuck.
Well, we'll definitely bookmark this conversation. I'll talk to you next time, Shane.
Love, love, love.